Okay, let me start the lecture now. It is already 7 past 10. So I will be discussing some more thing about the underdam system. So if we go back to our underdam displacement curve, this is the underdam displacement curve. So here you are getting the exponential decay for the underdam system. And you already have seen that this is your damp frequency in radian per second, and this will be equal to 2 pi into Fn Fd. D represent the damp frequency is nothing but 2 pi upon time period. And so from this you are getting a time period is given by 2 pi upon 1 minus zeta square root of this into omega n. So here this is basically shown here in this figure. Now if I consider this is the A point, this is the B point, and this represents the same points on the successive cycle. So it become basically a time period. So if I draw a vertical line here, suppose this is your TA and this is your TB. So your TB minus TA is given by time period. So here, and you know that your amplitude of this damp vibration for of this type is given by x naught upon 1 minus zeta square root into e raised to power minus zeta omega n t. So suppose at a time ta, this is your amplitude is xa, and at time b, this amplitude is equal to xb. So you can write, from this you can write xa by putting t is equal to ta here. It becomes x naught upon 1 minus zeta square e raised to power minus zeta omega n ta. You can write similarly for xb. At time tb, it becomes x naught upon 1 minus zeta square e raised to power minus zeta omega n tb. So here, now if I make a ratio of these two amplitude at two times here, it becomes xa upon xb is equal to, this will cancel out, it become e raised to power minus zeta omega n into ta minus tb. I can write this one into, I can write this one here omega n into zeta into tb minus ta, and this is your time period. Now if I take, so now you can write this TB minus TA is equal to TP time period, and it is given by this value. So I can write this one here, e raised to power zeta omega n. You are having a 2 pi upon 1 minus zeta square into omega n. This cancel out here. It becomes e raised to power 2 pi zeta upon 1 minus zeta square root here. If you take a natural log of the both side, you will be getting xa upon xb is equal to 2 pi zeta upon square root of 1 minus zeta square. So this is basically known as logarithmic decrement. And this is basically denoted by delta. So your delta is given by log xa upon xb is given by 2 pi zeta upon square root of 1 minus zeta square. And this is the basically ratio of two successive cycle amplitude. And this basically depends upon only, so your delta depends upon is a function of zeta only, and nothing else will define this delta. So here this is your decrement on log scale. Generally this damping which we are giving here is very small, is small you can say, and it vary from 0.0012 to 0.05. And for the small value of zeta, this delta approximate can be given by 2 pi zeta. And this is your delta exact when you consider the lower term. From this one, you can also find, suppose if you have given delta here, you can find the zeta. So your, as per this, your zeta will come out to be delta upon, you can make a squaring the both side, and then you can get this value, 4 pi square plus delta square. This is your exact, and from that you can find delta approximate is given by delta upon 2 pi. So this is here. Now if you can also plot these two graphs. The first one is this one, second one is this one, and you will be having a graph between zeta and delta. For this one it is a straight line, while for the exact one it will be like this. This is the exact graph here. So in this way you can, if you know that delta, you can find that damping factor here. So you got this value here. This is the exact value here. This that I am discussing. Now you can also find the logarithmic decrement by this equation. In this equation, x naught is the amplitude at uh, some particular point. This is the maximum value, and xn is the amplitude of the damp vibration after n cycle. So here, for every cycle, you can write the delta value. It is the natural log of x naught upon x1, then x1 upon x2, and so on. This is basically n time. So you are having a, now if I add this delta n time, then you can write x naught upon x1, x1 upon x2, and so xn minus 1 upon xn. Now you can write this term like this, and you are cancelling out every term here, except you are getting a x naught upon xn here. This is your n delta here. So from there you can find delta of this. This is the delta given by considering the n cycle in a damp vibration. Now this vibration, this delta is basically used to find the amount of damping in the physical system. Suppose if you have been given a displacement curve, which I have already discussed just now. This is the enveloping line. Then you are having a displacement curve like this. So for from this graph, this is your amplitude and this is your time here. For this from this graph, you can find the amplitude of x naught here, and after n number of cycle you can find xn, and then you can apply this formula and you can find the delta here. So once you, so for the system uh, for which you have been given a graph, you don't know anything, but you have only the displacement graph. From that you can find x naught xn and find delta here. From delta you can use 2 pi zeta here, and from that you can find zeta, that is your damping factor. So in that way, amount of damping is present can be found out on real displacement curve for a given system. Now here, for a damping system, we are having a one term here that is known as a overshoot. In some problem, you will be finding the overshoot type of things. So generally, overshoot can be given here x half into x naught. X half is basically the amplitude of the first half of the next cycle immediately on crossing the time, and x naught is the initial amplitude. Generally, we are keeping this overshoot 5 to 10% for a mechanical damp system. So here, if I again go back to that graph, so here So here I can say this is the next one. So I can write this is simply x half. So here you can say x half upon xa is basically overshoot. I can say simply OS here. So I can also write x half upon xb is again a overshoot. So if I multiply these two, x half, so this should be reverse. This should be reverse here. So I can write xa here, and this is your xb upon x half. So if I multiply this one, and now if I write x a upon xb will come out to be x half xa upon x half, then x half upon xb. It is nothing but this is your 1 upon overshoot square. This is your delta. So you can find the overshoot of a damped vibration as a so your from that you can find overshoot is equal to 1 upon square root of delta. So if you know the logarithmic decrement of a damped vibration, you can find the overshoot of the problem. Now let us discuss some other type of damping now. So I have basically considered the fluid damping till so far. It is basically comes under the viscous damper. The viscous damper now can be classified into two categories. One is the fluid dashpot, and second one is your mechanical damping. So in the fluid dashpot, we are having a cylinder. This is your cylinder and piston arrangement. Then you are having a clearance between the piston and the cylinder is small e. Length of the piston is L, and mean diameter of the piston and cylinder is dm. And you are having a some viscous fluid here, that is your basically lubricant, which basically move to and fro through the clearance. So here the damping which you will be getting because of the viscous damping will be because of three factors. One is because of the drag of the fluid. Number second, the pressure flow of the fluid. through the clearance space of the piston and the cylinder. And the third one is the pressure difference on the two sides of the piston. So here, if the clearance between the piston and the cylinder is small, then these first two type of effect is negligible. So only the third one will dominate, and this will basically decide the damping of the dashpot. And in the next semester, you will study the formula of this type in fluid mechanics, where C is known as a viscous damping coefficient. Mu is basically the coefficient of viscosity of the lubricant or the fluid. AP is the flat side of the piston. You are having basically you are having a two side of a piston. On one side you are having a connecting rod, and other is basically a flat one. So AP is the area of the piston, and L is the length of the piston, and dm is the mean diameter of the piston, and E is the clearance between the piston and cylinder. So from this formula you can see that you can change the damping of a dashpot by varying these parameters, and accordingly we design the dampers of viscous type. Basically this formula is basically based on certain assumptions, like damping media is perfect fluid, sharp edges, orifice effect is neglected, piston rod diameter is small as compared to the piston diameter, laminar flow exists between the clearance space, and piston cylinders are concentric. These are the assumptions on which this formula has been derived. Now, in the second one is your eddy current damping. It is basically known as a mechanical damping of viscous type. It is also known as magnetic damping, because magnetic effect uh, consider magnetic effect derive this damping. In this damping, we are having a non this is basically a non-ferrous conducting non-ferrous plate, conducting plate, and you are having a, this plate is basically has been put between the magnets. So when this plate moves like this, then it will form a eddy current in the setup, and this eddy current will generate some magnetic field which will be opposing the movement of this plate, and this magnetic field that is generated here is proportional to the velocity of this plate, and because of that reasons it is known as a mechanical damping of viscous type. So here basically uh, the resistance magnetic field induced in this process is proportional to the velocity of the plate. So you can say the resistance force which you are getting here is proportional to velocity of the plate, and that's why it is also a mechanical type of viscous damping. This type of damping is used in vibrometer. These vibrometers are basically used to measure the amplitude of vibration. Beside that, it can also be used in vibration control systems. So these are the applications of this eddy current damping. I will discuss this dry damping in the next class. So I can take up some more damping here. Now next is your solid or structural damping. So this damping is also known as elastic damping. It can also be called as hysteresis damping. This damping is basically occurring in the system because of internal friction of the molecules of the materials. So this is because of this reason you are having a molecules which will be having some internal friction in itself, and because of that you are having a solid or structural damping. This is important damping here which will be occurring because the system are subjected to elastic restoring force. All the elastic bodies, whatever material we are using, we will consider that all the materials are elastic in nature. And when we put these elastic materials under cyclic reversal of loading, then you will be getting a loop will appear on the stress strain curve. So if I draw a stress strain curve for a elastic body subjected to some dynamic stresses or fluctuating stresses, then you will be having this type of loop here. This is the loading of the material and this is the unloading of the material or relaxation. This is your stress on the y-axis and this is your strain. So it indicates that when we load the material, then you are doing more work than what you will be recovering when you make a unloading of the material in a cyclic load. And the area under this loop is nothing but it is the energy dissipation by the material in one cycle. Energy dissipation by the material per, vol- per volume per volume of the material per cycle. So because of it is having a hysteresis loop, it is known as hysteresis loop here. That's why it is known as a hysteresis damping. So this is the amplitude of the stress induced. So this type of damping is will depend upon elastic material, stress amplitude, and this will basically define the amplitude of the vibration. It is also so beside that it also depend upon the material. Some materials are having a bigger loop than other materials. It also depend upon the frequency of the system. Generally, we are finding the damping per unit time. So if we are having a more frequency, it means it will be having a more number of cycle will be there in a unit time. So it will be having a more damping in case frequency are more. So it depends upon number one stresses induced in the body or nothing but amplitude of the vibrations. So these three factors basically define the amount of damping by this method. So generally you will see that all the machine tools are having a cast iron as a machine bed. It is because the cast irons is forming a bigger loop in this type of damping, and it will basically absorb the vibrations more easily as compared to other materials. And that is the reasons why we are making the cast iron machine beds. So in this type of damping, suppose you are having a material here, suppose you are having a similar system having a two frequencies, suppose FA and FB, and FA is more than FB, and you are having a same stress level in the both the system, material is also same. So as I already mentioned that the A system will be giving us more damping because of larger value of frequency as compared to B, because we are finding the damping in unit time. So based on that, you are having a small problem here. Suppose you are having a system A having a frequency of 12 Hz in free vibrations. System B is having a 15 Hz free vibrations. System A is taking a 4.5 seconds to damp out completely. It means the total. So here you are having a 12 into 4.5. Then what will be the time taken for the system B to damp out completely? So here you can use this formula. There is your 12 is basically a hertz cycle per second into second here. It becomes cycle because basically you need the same number of cycle to damp out the system here. So in that way you are getting a 3.6 second here. And the next damping is your slip or interfacial damping. This type of damping will occur when you join the two components with some pressure, and that pressure may be coming because of some bolting of the two plates or the two systems. So this damping is due to microscopic slip between the two parts, which are clamped, which have been given some pressure here. So here to explain this damping, suppose you are having a plate A. This is a cantilever beam. On that we are putting a plate A here, and these two plates are clamped by some C clamp, and this C clamp will put some pressure at the interface of the two plates. Now if suppose if this plate vibrates here in this manner, it will vibrate about its central axis. This is central axis, and because of that you will be getting some slip at the interface of the two parts. So the movement of the plate during the vibration has been shown here. So you are getting some slip here as well as some slip here. And because of this slipping phenomena occurring between the two plates, you are going to have some damping in the system. So this type of damping basically depend upon the coefficient of friction between the two plates, and it depends upon the roughness of the surface of the two plates. So beside that, it also depend upon the contact pressure. It also depends upon the amplitude of vibration. So this type of damping depend upon the three factors. One is the coefficient of friction, contact pressure between the two parts, and the amplitude of vibration. Now, if you are having a no pressure at this interface of this point, because there is no pressure, so there will not be no force between the two components, and because of that, you will not have any energy loss. However, when there is no pressure in between these two interface point, you will be getting a very you will be getting a slip, large slip there. Similarly, when you are having a high pressure there, at the high pressure, you will not find any slip there, and because of that, you are having a again no energy loss will be there. So this has been shown here. This is the zero pressure, and this is the high pressure here. In between these 2 points, you are having some optimum pressure where the slip damping is maximum. So this type of damping will be uh, again depend upon the vibration of the amplitude of the, so again you can say for larger amplitude you are having a some other point here. So for the larger amplitude you are having a large amount of damping as compared to the smaller amplitude system. So this is of the slip damping here. Now let us solve a problem. Let us solve this problem here. This is a gun barrel of 600 mass. It is having a recoil spring of 2,94,000 Newton meter stiffness, and recoil is having a 1.3 meter firing. So as you can also have the same type in your handheld guns. Generally, you will basically compress the spring by 1.3, and in that way spring will have some energy stored in itself. So here we need to find what is the initial velocity of the barrel. Then at the end of the recoil, you will be having a critical damper there, and then we need to find what is the critical damping coefficient is needed for this system. And then we also want that this barrel after firing should come to its original state with a position of 5 centimeter from its initial point. So we need to find time here, we need to find damping, we need to find velocity of the barrel. So for the first point, this is the energy stored in the spring, nothing but half kx square. You can write k is equal to 2,94,000 here and 1.3. This is in your basically Newton meter and this is your meter square. It become your 2,48,400 Newton meter or joule. Now when you release this spring, the whole of the energy stored in the spring will be converted into the velocity of the barrel, and that is given by half mv square. So initial velocity of the barrel is nothing but given by this formula, and it is giving you the value of 28.75 meter. Now once suppose you fire the barrel, at the end of the uh, stroke, your critical damper will be active. So you need to find what will be the critical damping coefficient for this, and you know that critical damping is cc is given by 2 square root of km. It is giving you the critical damping of the system. So basically critical damping systems are used in the gun barrel. Besides that, you also have seen the door closure, automatic door closures, where you are having a critical damping is employed. It is all because that we don't want the system to vibrate. So because of that reason, and as well as we also want that the system should come to its original state in the least amount of time. So because of that, critical damping is used in industrial purposes and so on. This is your first answer, velocity of the barrel. This is second answer. Now for the third answer, for the outward stroke, there is no damper. So you are getting a omega n. Nothing but square root upon k upon m. It is giving you the value of 22.1 radian per second. From that you can find is equal to 2 pi upon time period Tp, or you can say T here. It comes out to be 0.284. Now if you, now this is the condition here. Now here we are having a time here on the x-axis, displacement this one. So you don't have any damper in the starting of the firing, and you are getting a this is the 1/4 cycle. You are getting a 0.284. If you remember, this is your 0.284 second. So 1/4 of this time period is given by 0.01071 second. Now this is the basically a outward stroke of the damp of the coil of the barrel. So here this is the 1/4 cycle or outward stroke from 0 to 1.3 meter. If you don't put a damper at this point, critical damper, then you will be having a oscillation like this, and your system will oscillate to and fro, which we don't want. So that's why we put a critical damper at this point, and critical damper will start working at this point here. So at this point you will see that velocity will change its sign. It means at this point velocity is equal to 0, and your displacement here will come out to be 1.3 meter here. So if I consider this is as an initial point for this critically damped system, and I can assume this is basically a at t is equal to 0. So I will consider a time starting from this point for the critical damp here, and I want to find the time to be taken from this point to this point having a 5 centimeter or 0.05 meter from the initial position. So now at this point you are having critical damper here, and you know that for a critical damping, this is the conditions which has been shown here. Displacement 1.3 meter and velocity 0 at t is equal to 0, and t is measured at a point of 0.71 second. And you are for a critical damping, displacement is given by this equation. You can make a derivative of this with respect to t. It become your velocity. Now when you put these two conditions in this equation, you are getting a 1.3 at t is equal to 0, x is equal to 1.3. It comes out to be c1. It becomes 0 here. So c1 comes out to be 1.3. From this you can find the second equation. It is yours 0 is equal to this one. So from that you can find c1 plus c2. So now here you can put the c1 c2 in this equation, and you will be getting, sorry, c1 c2 from this equation, and you are getting this displacement here. This is the displacement of the critically damped system from the peak of that graph. Now here this x will be in meter. So now here we need to find the value of t when x is equal to 0.05 meter, and this you can find only by trial and error method. So again the various component of this equation has been written here. This is your 28.8 t. This is your sum of these two terms. This is the third term. Then you are finding the x here. So we can start point 1 here. This is in meter here. So you will keep on decreasing here. Point 1, point 2, point 21, it is 0.71. Then point 22, it is 0.49. This is the desired value, approximate here. So it will take approximately 0.22 second to come back to its 0.05 meter approximately from initial position. So total time period which a gun will be having to achieve the 0.05 meter value of its barrel is this one plus this one. It comes out to be a 0.29 second. So this is the thing which you can have. So I can have one more problem of, but this will take, okay. This is the torsional vibration of damp type. So here you have mass moment of inertia is 600 kg centimeter square. So basically this is a damper here, and you have put everything under this fluid here. This become a basically a torsional vibration of damp type. So here it is having a diameter of d 10 centimeter, length is 40 centimeter. When the system vibrates, then the amplitude on the same side is given by 9 degree, 6 degree, 4 degree, and you can see here 9 by 6 is equal to 6 by 4. So basically you are having a constant value here. It shows that it is a viscous damping. So here you need to find what is the delta value for this. This you can find here by this natural log of 9 upon 6, or this it comes out to be 0.45. This is the first answer of this problem. Now second, what is the damping torque? Damping torque at unit velocity, unit angular velocity you can say. So if you remember our equation for the spring mass system, this has comes out to be mx double dot plus cx dot plus kx is equal to 0. For torsional vibrations, it will come out to be I theta double dot plus ct theta dot plus kt into theta here. So you can have the analogous formula of the torsional vibration of damp type. So here, so you know that delta is known as 2 pi upon zeta here. So from that you can find the zeta. You know the, I already mentioned that if you know the delta, you can find the zeta here. And it has found the zeta exactly. Comes out to be 0.065. Now we need to find damping torque at the unit displacement. This is your mass moment of inertia of the disk. This is your damping torque. So basically here every term will be having a unit of force. Here every term is having a unit of torque. So you are having a Ct is nothing but torque upon theta dot. This is the damping torque at unit velocity. So we need to find here Ct. So to find the Ct, you need to find damping coefficient Cc or C for here. So if you remember, our Cc for the spring mass system is given by 2 km. And for this one it will become 2 kt into I, mass moment of inertia. So here you need to find kt first. Your I is given. It is your 600 kg centimeter square, and to find the kt, nothing but torque upon theta is given by GIP upon L. G is given to you. IP is known as pi by 32 d raised to power 4 upon L. So when you put the value here, this is your KT here. This is torsional stiffness is given by this. It comes out to be this value. So you know KT, you know I value here. So you can find the CC here. You can find the CC from this. Once you got the CC here, you already have found the zeta here. You can find the C here. and this comes out to be this value. This is your damping torque at unit velocity. This is your second answer. And the third one, periodic time of vibration. So you can find that omega time period is given by omega d, based on the omega d here. Omega d is equal to omega n 1 minus zeta square. And you can find the omega n is nothing but square root of k upon m for the spring mass system. It comes out to be like this, where J is the mass moment of inertia. I have taken I here. So again, you will be writing K in terms of Newton meter per meter, and again I in terms of kg meter square, and you will be getting a omega n here. Once you get omega n, again it is equal to 2 pi upon time period. So you are getting a time period here. This is your time period of the omega n. Sorry, this is time period is given by this one. It is also equal to 2 pi into Fn. So Fn is given by this. So now to find the damped periodic time period, you can write the you already got the omega n. You know the zeta. You can find the time period for this one here. So this is about this problem. So I will continue with the next article, that is your friction damping, Coulomb's damping, in the next class, and that will be the end of this chapter. You will be getting next assignment by Monday itself. All right. Any doubt you can ask? No doubt?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, okay. Thank you everybody. Then I will leave the meeting now.